Yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm.
We did.
Oh, I haven't forgotten. And so, he used to be a colonel, and we'll forgive him for that. I was just a lowly sergeant, so.
No, NCOs are the backbone.
Yeah, well, that's what they said.
It's true.
So, anyway, he's running for District 5, and you've got these nice blue cards, and I've taken up so much of your time, I'm just gonna go on ahead and ask him to come up here and tell us what he wants us to know before we open it up to questions. And we're videotaping this, you will get a copy so that you can use it as your campaign wishes. But we will also get it to put it on our YouTube so everybody else in the fifth can screen one candidate against another. Okay? So anyway, David, please come in.
Well, thank you, Cynthia, and thank you everybody for coming out today. Appreciate you taking the time to visit with me for a little bit. It's remarkable the work you guys are doing. And I gotta say this, I've never heard of spray chalk before.
I had to look hard.
I learned something today, but that's terrific, and that reminds me, if you're spray painting chalk, ICE took somebody here, and I had the good fortune to visit Hungary a couple of years ago in Budapest. Budapest, right by the river, they have these empty shoes. Yeah. And it's all, they represent so many hundreds, each pair of shoes represents so many hundreds of people who were taken away during World War II from that dock. And you stand there and I get chills just remembering it, it's really interesting. So do that. I think we're gonna borrow that in Walla Walla.
Please.
That idea, although we can't do it downtown because we have someone who chalks the sidewalks downtown with hate speech. And the city council has put in an ordinance that you can chalk there because that's your First Amendment rights, but you have to clean it up before sundown. So far that individual's accrued $11,000 worth of fines. But anyway, so we'll do it other places, but but it is legal, back to your point, as long as there's no restrictions for the city like that. As long, don't do it with paint, because then that's graffiti and defacing it, so, but yeah, so great idea. So, like Cynthia said, I'm David Womack, and I'm running for Congress for the 5th Congressional District here. She's already described to you what that is. And so I'll tell you just a little bit about myself and why I'm running. As the card says there, I'm a retired Air Force colonel. My last job in the Air Force was I was the medical group commander out here at Fairchild. And that was the first time we lived in Eastern Washington. I had been the hospital commander at Mountain Home Air Force Base over near Boise. That's the closest I got. They told me that was the Northwest, but that, east of Boise doesn't feel like the Northwest. It just feels like the Northwest. So, but that was my last job in the Air Force. Retired out of there. From there, I went to run a rural hospital in central Illinois. Did that for a few years, and then I had the good fortune to come back and be the CEO of the hospital in Colfax. So we were back in Eastern Washington, and there's where the roots really started to run deep for us right here. Shortly, did that for a few years, and then was recruited to go to work for Kaiser Permanente. I did that in Bakersfield, California. I was the senior vice president there, responsible for 115,000 members at a $700 million budget, about 1,100 people on staff, 200 physicians. So, when it came time to choose where to live, my wife and I put a short list together, and we put Eastern Washington on it and put Walla Walla. She put Walla Walla on it specifically. I had never been there, but she put it on there, and then we came to visit, and so we started hanging around Walla Walla well before I retired. But then once I did retire permanently in 2021, we moved there. So we've been back here in this area for 5 years. and we've lived all around this part, all around the district. So that gives us a little bit different flavor than I think maybe some of the other candidates have who've been in one swamp. So I think it also allows me a little to be able to talk to some people from some rural areas that maybe I have a little bit of, I can't call it street cred, maybe it's dirt cred, to be able to talk to folks in the rural areas as well. So why would I do this at this point in my life? So with everything going on in the country, you know, I, like almost everybody here, is a veteran, right? We all took that oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Remember the next line? And to bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
Yep.
And then there's a little bit about not taking it, having any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And then the next line is to well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. And that winds it up there. When you think of the current administration and its congressional enablers, they have totally forsaken their oath to that Constitution. Totally forsaken it. I don't feel like mine ever expired. And when I started thinking about this, I thought, well, you know, I know federal employees take the same oath too. I wonder what Congress people take. And it's the exact same oath. That's what Michael Baumgartner took. And it just, I actually feel called to run at this point, to do this. When I was thinking about it, I knew there was a fair amount of dissatisfaction, or that maybe that overstates it, lack of enthusiasm with the field of candidates. And so I talked to several people in the local party really involved on that service. And I said, do you think I would be a stronger candidate? Because they had encouraged me to run for other offices in the past, and that deep gut call wasn't there. But now it was starting to germinate. And they were all in it, they were all for it. They said, yeah, do it. We'll be behind you, we'll help. And they have. The community of Wawa has just been incredibly supportive. And so that's why I'm here today, is to honor that oath. You know, if you look at the back of the card there, it talks about a lot of things other than just the Constitution that I want to work on if I get to go to Congress. And that's because there's just so many things to be fixed. But you know, they all tie back to the Constitution. They really do. If you ever think about what's the mission of the federal government, you know, that's something we describe now. We talk about this organization's mission, that organization's mission. They didn't use that language when they were putting the Constitution together. But they actually did craft a pretty darn good mission statement. It is right there in the preamble. It says, we the people. Okay, that's where the power comes from. We the people. First goal, in order to form a more perfect union, okay, not disunion, not divide us against ourselves, but a union together, working together. And what are we working together for? Well, Mr. Baumgartner, I heard him say the first goal is national defense. No, it's not. It's to form a more perfect union. And then the next thing we work on is to establish justice. That's the very next thing. How are we doing on that? Okay? Well, it gets worse. The next one is ensure domestic tranquility. Then we get to provide for the common defense. It says defense, it doesn't say offense. It doesn't say we're going to attack our allies or threaten to attack our allies.
Or our people.
who are we defending against? Not our own people. It's back to the top, we the people. Right. And then you got promote the common welfare. The welfare has a little different connotation today than it did back then. A more modern term would be promote the common well-being. So, obviously, we've done some things just in the last 12 months that have shredded that. And then you get to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. And that's really under threat, obviously. So, all those things that are listed on the back there, an awful lot of them come under that. Promote the common well-being. That's directly rooted in our Constitution. As is, of course, the other things about having a defense department that's not a Department of War, and protecting our rights, and making it a better place to live. And that's really why I'm running, because I look at our current representative, and he's not doing any of those things. He's voting against us here in Eastern Washington and beyond, for all of America. The votes he cast just kind of blow me away, and then his rationale behind it just makes no sense to me at all. So, I think I will stop there. Sometimes I talk a little bit more about the different points on the back of the card, but you've got that all laid out there in front of you, so if you wanna ask more about those, or anything I've said, or anything else that's on your mind, that would be great, so.
Are we up for questions?
I bet you are, I bet this group is. Yes, please.
I love your interest in approaching the farming and agricultural community, because I felt like last time when Carmela Conroy ran, she just ignored that entire section of our district, which ends up being a significant economic block of,
It is, yeah.
And given that Baumgart just voted against tariffs, against reducing tariffs in
Right.
Canada, and we border Canada.
Right.
I just feel like this is, this whole agricultural issues are ripe for talking about. Are you planning to get out into these smaller communities and
Oh, yeah.
ranges and meet with, the farming community?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, already have, there's a significant block of my church, maybe 25% that are farmers. So I see them at least once a week. Well, not this weekend here. But yes, and, so far, we've also been over to Pullman, and, that's Whitman County, to Colfax, to Clarkson as well. And I talk to our farmers all the time, and I will tell you that they're not happy. Yeah. Well, it doesn't mean they've changed party affiliation necessarily. It is everything, every farmer I've talked to is not happy, every single one. And it ranges from, I'm not happy with my boy Trump, to I'm spitting mad, is one of them told me. I mean, when they put the tariffs on Canada, that was an immediate hit. 80% of the fertilizer used in the dry land farming down south of here comes from Canada. It's an immediate hit. And what's hitting them now, that didn't hit them immediately, is the tariffs on machinery and parts. Because as they start to look to invest in new machinery, they're thinking, no, the price is too much. Parts to fix the old machinery, that's sky high as well. Their price of inputs into the farming has gone way up. At the same time, he's destroyed trade agreements, because most of these countries have come back with retaliatory tariffs. And these farming communities, they go together for their growers, co-ops to export things. They've been working on these trade agreements for decades, and they evaporated within weeks.
The thing I don't understand about this community is the exact same thing happened in 2020 when Trump was elected. He destroyed 2016, he destroyed trade agreements then for farmers that never came back, ever, they're still not there. So what was the pull or motivation to vote for a known quantity that had already harmed their own, industry?
I'm not sure I could dig into their minds. Know that. Yeah, I've been wondering that too, not just about that, but about a ton of things. But I will tell you, it's different now.
Okay, good.
It's different now. They are tired of it. And some of them are, I've talked to them where essentially they're telling me they're gonna hold their nose and vote for somebody else. They still don't like the brand of the Democratic Party. They don't like some of the other things that the Democratic Party has promoted in the past. But they're tired of it, and it's hurting them so bad at this point that there's a difference. And I think that's actually one of the advantages I bring to the table, is that connection there. From having been in Colfax, when I was the CEO of the hospital there, half of my board was farmers. The other half were small business owners. One small town lawyer. But yeah, so I know these folks, some of them, and work with them. Yes.
Well, I was thinking, as you said that, is that, and I think I heard you say something about labels and being a Democrat or a Republican. Now, being someone who's been in the military, you have to get rid of those because you have Republicans, Democrats, Independents, people who don't vote and do vote. So how do you think you could bridge that in some of this?
Just the whole notion of the label.
Right.
Well, you notice it doesn't identify me as a Democrat on any of my materials. And as long as we talk about issues, I found that people are much more aligned than they are disaligned. We often agree on what the problems are. In fact, we all agree on what the problems are. And we often agree on what the solutions are as well. It's just a matter of how do we get from here to there. So yesterday we were at the Lunar New Year Festival down at the convention center, and every person who walked by, we talked about the issues. And you might find it interesting to note that not a single person said, "Yeah, but I like Baumgartner," or "Yeah, I'm gonna vote." Not a single one. And it wasn't like we were out there flashing, "I'm a Democrat," because it's just like that, and nothing identifies it, right? We talked about the issues. So we had a few independents who stopped and really wanted to engage. Did have two people who they self-identified themselves as a Republican. One of them said, "Well, I think I'm gonna consider you very hard," because we talked about the issues. The other one, we talked about the issues, and I could tell he was kind of wrapping up and getting ready to walk away, and he says, "Oh, I have one more question for you. What party do you represent?" And I said, "Well, I'm a Democrat." And he said, "Oh, well, forget you." And he did this, and then he stopped and he turned around and he said, "But you're not crazy. You could save your party."
You could be the next Tom Foley.
I thought, well, thank you, number one. But you're not crazy. And I thought, well, I know a lot of Democrats aren't crazy. I know we are. Anyway, yeah, I just thought it was interesting. And so, and it's the same thing on my website. Just one more quick story. 2 weeks ago, I got an email from the website. Somebody asked me a question, and it says, "What party are you in? You sound like a libertarian or a Republican." I'm going, it's just the issues.
And what is that? What is a libertarian or a Republican? I mean, describe it.
Yeah, it's just, I'm not sure what's in that person's mind, but, I
what
wrote him
you
back and told him I'm a Democrat, and why I don't identify it, and thank him for the compliment of thinking that maybe I'm open-minded, you know? So, yeah, it's just curious to me.
Question over here.
Oh,
Well,
yes,
David,
yes.
thank you for coming today, and I commend you for your courage in throwing your hat in the ring, because you've got an uphill slog in the Congressional District. Many of us have participated in previous campaigns, and you've got your work cut out for you, and it's gonna be a hard job from now till November if you make it through the primary. My question is this, I'm glad someone asked about the rural constituency, which I thought you addressed very well. Now I wanna talk about the young people. My grandson is 19, he cast his first vote last time. I'm glad to learn today that 16-year-olds can register, and if they're 18 by November, they can vote.
Yes.
But all of his friends voted. They're all registered. He's a social butterfly. He knows hundreds of kids in this district. If you wanna know where they are, they're in the streets.
Yep.
And they're very interested in the issues that you're bringing up in this session, but here's the one issue I wanna get your opinion on. I asked him who he voted for. I didn't say, Grandpa says you should vote this way. I
Good for
did not
you.
make that mistake.
Good for you.
I said, who did you vote for? He said, I and none of my friends voted for Trump. I and none of my friends voted for Kamala. I said, who did you vote for? Because you all voted. He said, we voted Green, and we voted for Jill Stein for one reason, Gaza. We are a one-issue young people folks. So I would like to challenge you and say, if you get elected to Congress, what would be your view of the current American government support for the government of Israel?
So, great question, George. And when I spoke to the young Democrats last Wednesday night, I think I had 5 questions in my 15 minutes that I could talk about, and that was one of them. Was Gaza right there? High on young people's minds. So, extremely high.
Did they applaud your answer?
Yes.
I believe they did, if I remember correctly, yes. Which is, and this isn't pandering to the young vote, this is what I truly believe. I think that what Hamas did to the people of Israel was absolutely horrible. Does that justify Israel's response? Absolutely not. That was over the top. They've come very close to wiping out an entire people because of the actions of a few terrorists. I don't think we should be supporting the government of Israel to do anything like that. I think the moment that became obvious, we should have cut off military aid to Israel. That's what I believe.
Okay, that's a good answer.
And I wanna make sure that nobody sees that as an anti-Semitic remark, because it is not. I do not hold Jewish people accountable for the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu as in any way, just like I don't hold any of you responsible for the actions of Donald Trump. That's what that would be, if you start to equate that. Yes?
I just kind of want to go back, and so I understand it. You were talking about, and since farming is such a big deal in this side of the state, and you said that, that farmers kind of resent a lot of Democratic policies. What is it that they resent about Democratic policies?
There's some, a lot of farmers, a lot of rural people in general, they're very proud of their communities and they want them to stay strong. And some of them feel that some of the things the Democratic Party has pushed in the past kind of tears at their traditional notion of what a family is when it comes right down to it. There's still some pushback on abortion, things like that. There's still some feelings of anti-gay out there as well. And it's not like I'm going to disavow that at all. But I think
it's
those things have been
guns, too.
shifting over the years where it's more and more accepted. Even in those rural communities.
Don't you think it's more also with the gun laws and everything else that we're
Thank you for bringing that up.
regulations or?
A lot of it is guns too. They don't see, they've bought hook, line and sinker that the Democrats are coming after their guns.
Even though they've never actually said that.
What's that?
Even though they've never said that.
Of course not, but they've been told that we've said that. Just like some are surprised when we carry an American flag in a protest. They're going, I thought liberals hated America. And they've been told that, and many have bought that.
40 years of Fox.
Yeah.
And there you go. Yeah. Yes.
This, my question is in the rural,
Mhm.
but also the youth.
Okay.
What are you thinking about the loss of the EPA rules that we just did this week?
Okay, that's,
Sorry, could you
Thank
repeat the
you.
question?
well, she was essentially asking about the Environmental Protection Agency,
Okay.
and I would interpret on to climate change. So, well, I think so many of the things this administration has done and Congress has allowed them to do, tears at all sorts of progress we've made over the last several decades. And the EPA is one of them. You could lump in there the CDC, you know, there's just a lot of things that have done that we're gonna have to rebuild at some point. And here's the opportunity in that, is we can build it better than it used to be, you know? I mean, when it's been destroyed, you've gotta start over, so build it better. You know, we have better information technology now that we can use. We can anticipate some of the chaoses and weaknesses in our system that we didn't know we had until they've been exploited in the last 12 months, to put some of these things in law that were not necessarily in law before. They were administrative procedures. The agencies did their rulemaking process, and it's very easy to change, or it's easier to change those than it is to change law. Of course, then once it's in law, we've gotta be able to enforce it. So that leads to a whole nother discussion, but yeah, so I would love to see some of that, you know, treaties do belong to the executive branch by and large, but Congress can legislate, make some legislative changes about treaties and how we work with other countries and get back into some of these agreements that we had, that we were actually starting to make some progress on climate change.
I have another question. So I live out in the West Plains, very close to Fairchild and to the airport, and I'm in PFAS country. They just gave them the permission to spray everything with PFAS. Well, we know it's in everything, but when it's when it's concentrated, like in some of the areas, you're gonna run up and down this side of the state. And there are lots of places where contamination is in concentrations, close to families and homes. Probably have to invite you out to our West Plains area for some of our meetings, dealing with this PFAS issue. But that's a big concern across the nation right now. You know, this is the environmental thing. So that's something, how would you address that if you had a chance?
So, I would love to come out and learn more about it. So, I'll take you up on that offer.
Okay.
And this is actually what I hope to do here, is to, you know, I'm learning too from your questions
Right.
about what the issues
Yeah.
are, so.
Well, we had some big ones. We had a county commissioner who held out for a long, long time and didn't tell the public what he knew, sitting on a board with the airport, with the contamination of waters that were around that for people's wells, because that's rural. And so you've got people out there doing it and they all have fire stations, so they've all had to have suppressants of some kind. There's airports all over this part of the country. So, looking at that issue, that's an important issue environmentally, it's a health issue, there's a lot of things there. So, but now, of course, it's been wiped out, and he's permitting, zoning PA, there's nobody, the grants, the funding, all the stuff to try to, contain
It's all
this.
gone.
It's all gone.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, so.
that's a real one.
So Betty, if you could get some contact information here so we could.
Molly Marshall.
Right, well, Molly
Yeah.
Marshall, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if she's really right where
actually-
we are. Are you-
No, she doesn't live there, but she's on the board.
Okay.
And she works with,
John.
John Hancock, yeah.
Yeah.
So
We'll make contact.
We'll
Great.
make sure we get David to a meeting. And
Yeah.
I actually, in his race Bible, I actually have PFAS. We haven't worked into that yet.
Sure.
But I have the
Well,
information.
there's a website, and what I can do is I can email you all of the
Perfect.
information contact.
I'll give you my card.
Okay, good.
Great, thank you for bringing that up.
Okay,
two
Love to
questions.
dig into it. So, first aid and then we'll go back.
Well, PFAS has been going on since the late forties
Yes.
and been buried by the government since then. But my question is, I like a lot of what you say. I feel aligned with your directions. My biggest concern right now is what can we do to ensure a free and fair election in November? That concerns me tremendously.
Yeah, me too. So, I would say the best thing we can do is keep the pressure on.
And the best way to do that
Is to stay out of the streets. I mean, I think,
Good change.
back to your point of cheering on the people in Minnesota, but I'll also point out, they did win in Los Angeles. And Portland turned it into a joke, which was wonderful. I mean, I love, John Stewart came up there, but, Portland took the humor approach too, which is great. I mean, it just shows how ridiculous everything is, right? So that's where the power lies. And I would also say, talk to your county auditor a lot, because they're the ones who oversee the elections there. And then you can volunteer to be a poll watcher as well. And you can sit there and you can watch them count the votes, so that you're seeing that it actually happens once they collect the ballots, that it happens correctly. You can do all those things already. But I think the biggest thing is to really pay attention, and if we start to see ICE agents or any kind of federal agent around ballot drop boxes, we have got to mobilize big time and spread the news and make a big deal out of it. Use those buttons that you passed out, make a video. I'm here, there's a federal agent standing by this drop box, and let's get it out there. Because that's one of the good things about technology when it works, is that we all can use that to have a voice that was much harder to do in the past. You had to go find a reporter who had to write a story and get it through their editor. Well, that's kind of all gone. So let's use it to our advantage.
We have a question in the back there.
So sure.
We've been talking quite a bit about problems we see. Let's have you in the election.
Uh-huh.
Good news.
Okay.
Freshman congressman.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. What can you do as a freshman congressman in this district? You have leadership, not just on policy issues, but on trying to heal the divide. Because it is so deep in this district. It isn't just rural, it's valley and city. The toxicity is huge, and we have lack leadership in it. So what is the role of that, and what are actual approaches to take on that? The second is, you're back there, and hopefully the House and the Senate go Democrat. We still know the White House situation for 2 years. What do you do?
Yeah. So,
If, you know, identifying the problems one thing, what do you do?
absolutely, absolutely. Let me take the second one first.
Okay.
And then-
Easy.
And then you'll need to remind me what the first one is. But, okay, so what can I do as a freshman congressman, and what, and then what do I do over the next 2 years? Right, during that first term. So, well, the first thing I can do is cast different votes than Michael Bloomberg does.
Got that?
You know,
And recognize the moment, which you
What-
didn't do.
What do you mean? Tell me
Well,
about.
just like at the hearing that was just recently.
Oh,
about
oh.
him, but he didn't even recognize the moment.
Oh, he didn't recognize the moment, and the one before that with Jack Smith.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't recognize it.
Yeah. So my wife said, if he doesn't know Jack Smith, he doesn't know Jack.
Don't be shy of us.
Hello, my wife. So, but yeah, recognize the moment. So anyway, cast the votes that make sense for my constituents, which he's not doing over and over again. So, and on that one, the other day with the tariff vote, did you read in the Spokesman Review about why he, well, I was thinking about voting to release the tariffs, but then I talked to Mike Johnson and he said, no, you gotta give the president more latitude. That's the last thing we need to give this president. Yes. Oh, anyway, so beyond casting the right votes, is, I think there's gonna be a blue wave, assuming we have free and fair elections. And I think we can band together then, and we can stop some of the madness, and I think we can slow down other of it. And then I think we can build towards 2028. Because if the craziness continues, which has no sign of abating, if we take the Senate and the presidency in 2028, that's when we have a huge opportunity. And that's one of the things that really excites me about the future. Because I think if we do that, there's enough momentum building in the streets amongst us people that we can do things we can get things we've never been able to get, like healthcare for all. That's the opportunity I see right there.
And how many of us would like to have that?
Everybody, Republicans included.
Right.
Yeah. They want that. They want that. They don't quite, my perception is, a lot of Republicans don't quite know how to get it. Whereas, there's lots of ideas out there. Over 30 nations in the world have this, and it works. So, yeah, why reinvent the wheel? We can take pieces and parts of this and cobble something together, or we can build on, there are pieces of our system that actually work, largely. We can build on pieces and put it all together and make that available to everybody, not just to some. That's why on the back of my card, I talk about Medicare for all who want it. Because I think that'll appeal to people who don't want government telling them you will have Medicare. You know, that, a lot of people, it's just like, the government's gonna tell me something, it's gotta be bad. So, you don't have to take it, you can opt into it, right? So, if you get your health insurance through your employer, and you're happy with it, go ahead, you keep feeding the profit and the overhead to United Healthcare if you want. Or you can choose Medicare. And let's put Medicare on the exchange. So those who get it off the Affordable Care Act, they can choose across the 3 or 4 plans, and then there's Medicare, it's right there next to it.
Linda has a question.
I'm sorry.
We'll get back to the question you have to Linda.
Okay.
We've got a toxic district here. what can you see you doing as the congressman to set a tone that is different than what we got now?
Well, for one,
Yeah.
I think I will listen to everybody. I will actually hold town halls.
I thought those were outlawed.
I had one in Walla Walla 2 weeks ago. And, and Michael Baumgartner was supposed to come there the week before. And then 2 days before, he said, oh, for public safety, for security, I'm out.
Too scared.
I know the editor of the paper who helped set this up, and the quote was, I'm afraid of a Charlie Kirk thing, and there's gonna be protesters, and, I'm not happy with the security, so I'm out. That's what it was. And I have to point this out, and I'll get back to you, to point this out. So on the day he was supposed to hold the town hall there in Walla Walla, he didn't. But he held a $1,500 a plate fundraising luncheon in a hotel ballroom with no security from the Walla Walla Police, the Sheriff Department, or the state troopers, who were all going to provide security for his town hall. Just saying. Just saying. So, but anyway, I'll hold the town halls, I'll listen, and I'll watch my language very carefully. Because I don't believe in insulting Republican folks. We can talk about the issues. It's back to that. Let's stay focused on the issues, folks. Let's not use as many labels as we can. And there's gonna be a piece that are so far right, or you're right, that I'll never reach it, you know? But those that are in the middle or a little bit one way, I think we can talk about the issues.
Question
Right.
over here.
Yes,
Definitely. We've got to get you elected first, though, so. You talked about crazy going on, it's driving people to the streets, brutality, driving people to the streets. Things that we see every single day are outraging people, because it's on how not to do things for,
yeah.
our community, and Baumgartner's, he's right there with them. And, we're a diverse and large district. For 30 years, we were Democratic representative. The last 30 years, Republican, and Baumgartner thinks he has a lock on this. He does, he thinks he's got a lock on it. And I know for a fact, a lot of people didn't vote last time. And so I guess I'm gonna ask you the tough question here on
Okay,
how we're
go for
gonna
it.
get you elected,
Bring it.
because we have the young people. George talked about the slog that's ahead of you. We have the rural people, we have the indigenous people, people of color, and all of that. There's a lot of them didn't vote.
Yeah.
And so how are you gonna reach those folks? Cause I know they are outraged by the brutality and all of that's going on. People are awake now and want to get behind somebody that can represent them, that represents all of us. So what is your strategy on how to be Baumgartner and getting elected?
So it's reaching those groups as best I can. I mentioned being to the Spokane County Dems, Young Dems last week. We're setting up right now to go out to the colleges, out to EWU, to Whitman, there in Walla Walla. That's an easy target, actually, for us, as you well know. But for those young folks, we're also, at least in Walla Walla, I'm working with a guy to put together a local chapter of the Washington Youth Alliance. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's people between the ages of 14 and 25, and they're a very active group there as well. So that's kind of where we're headed with young folks. As the rural people, I kind of already described to some degree, but that's where, and any other groups that you know of, I'll ask for your help there too, that we can get in front of and talk with them, so.
Can I follow up on
Sure.
that? And, appreciate your, you have a calling. I'm sure at your age, you were retired and no thinking that you were gonna do this, and you saw what was going on, like us, like, this is crazy.
Yeah, but I have a little energy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So, I was just doing some spreadsheet math this morning before I came here. I was just kind of thinking of, you know, what is your strategy to, I'm not gonna go into the primary, because that's gonna be a whole different animal, but let's assume that you can get through that. Basically, you have to convince voters last time, and not talking about new voters, if you can get some of those, would be great. But 1 in 10, you have to convince 1 in 10 people to change the vote. Now, the center of gravity is, you know, Spokane,
Right.
Proper, Pullman, Walla Walla. If you go after just that group to win, you basically have to get 2 out of 10 to change the votes, and you're already at pretty good numbers already with that. So, I guess my recommendation, I mean, at least thinking of it, you've got to get out to Kettle and Newport and, you know, all those northern areas, and you have to get there and get 1 in 10 people to change your vote.
Places where I've been building indivisibles.
Well,
Yeah.
we're.
So that's just, I mean, in a strategy, I don't think if you've gotta go after his center of gravity and I think you'll keep yours. And I'm using operational talk, because that's what I
That's
did
okay.
for my entire
No,
career, so.
I get it. I speak the same language.
Yeah.
So, no, so you're absolutely right. There's, you know, we've done a lot of the numbers too as well. And one of the things I think is amazing in the numbers was the last election, how a number of people, thousands actually, some in Spokane, a lot in Whitman County, some in Franklin County, voted Kamala Harris, Maria Cantwell, Michael Baumgartner. There's thousands of votes just right there. And that's just, you know, and that tells you the last time the candidate was not reaching some people that should have been an easy pick, right? So we're going after those, and like you say, we're going after the population centers, of course, but we're not forgetting those outlying areas. We met with the Stevens County Democrats, all 5 of them.
I live in Stevens County.
On Thursday night, but they were excited. They talked about events we could come to. They started thinking about things they could organize. And you get up north, and it's small communities, and they're actually a ways away from each other, and they have their own little cultures. You can't just draw a circle around the county and say that's their culture. The towns are all different too, but we're not going to ignore them. We're going to go after them all. So, you know, since you've dug into some numbers, if you have more ideas, please share them. We're happy. You know.
These are just, you know, numbers I can get online.
Yeah, well,
That's
where it all comes from.
That's all right,
So,
you have to start somewhere.
I see. Yeah, I think you've been trying to.
Oh, that's
ask
a couple.
question.
I absolutely agree 100% with everything that you've been talking about, and my wife and I and Elizabeth been looking forward to finding a candidate that we could really support to beat Baumgartner, because he needs to disappear. But I see from here that you ventured into this race in December. This is February. I think maybe I was living under a rock because I had some surgery and this and that, but I didn't even know your name until 2 days ago or 3 days ago when I was invited to come here. And I'm just wondering, how do you get your name recognition out there? You need to get, I mean, what, has it been in the press? Has it been the spokesman review? Are you just doing the immediate things that get the volume of so much of, like when you get to the primary, so much of it is just name recognition, right? So many people don't know what's going on, but name recognition is important. I mean, just the basic stuff like that.
Like a billboard like Phil Harris used to put up and leave forever.
I mean, I'm just wondering, and I also noticed from the article I just read, when you put your name in, Kamala Harris, or not Kamala Harris, but Carmela Conroy, is that her name?
Yeah.
She had $150,000 in the bank. What's it gonna take for you to get out there and make sure you darn well win the primary?
Yeah, so, yeah, Carmela's been running since the day she lost.
Yeah.
Right.
And raising money, so, and, yeah, my giving into the calling came just a few months ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so December, that first month, that was building on my support, and Walla Walla, that was raising as much money as I could from everybody I knew. And it was a pretty good month, and then in January, we said, okay, that was kind of a one-man show. There's a few more people around me, but in January, it was a matter of really getting organized, and now you're starting to see what's coming from that. But this, I mentioned a couple of things this week. Young Dems Wednesday night, Stevens County Thursday night, Lunar New Year Festival yesterday. I'm here today. We have a coffee tomorrow morning. We have the Donkey Club on Tuesday, scheduled for the Magnuson Club in April.
That's all good, but how about publicity for people like me who didn't even know your name?
So, but yeah, it's been in the paper, new press releases.
There was a nice letter in the letters to the editor this week that mentioned you. And that's where I read that,
That's
so
where you read
that
it?
brought me here.
Okay, well-
And I brought these two people.
Thank you. That was actually a friend of mine from Walla Walla reading previous letters to the editor and said, boy, are they off base thinking Carmela's the only choice. So in came the letter. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and I know numerous people who think that Carmela is the, oh my God, we all gotta throw money into Carmela. I said,
Well, because they want to win.
well, of course, but yeah.
They just wanna get a Democrat,
Carmela's
and that's not a good reason.
And,
Yeah.
well, I want a Democrat to win.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's why we're doing what we're
Right.
doing right
Yeah.
now.
And if it's not me, if somebody else wins the primary, God bless them,
Right, you're
I'll
gonna
be
be
behind
happy.
them.
Right.
So, then as you pointed out, I'll go back to doing my not-for-profit work that I do in Walla Walla. that keeps
After
me
we
happy.
get someone elected.
Yes, yeah, right.
Is
right.
there a way you can tap into national Democratic money?
There is, the party tends to stay out of races until the primary. Because as they say, they don't wanna put the thumb on the scale. They want the people to speak, assuming that the people will elect the most electable person.
That's the assumption. That's the assumption.
Yeah, that's the assumption. That's the assumption. But they also look a lot at the amount of money raised, as you brought up, as an indication. So yes, I have an uphill battle.
Yeah, and there's,
Absolutely.
but in answer to what was just brought up here about the national, getting money from other people outside the state, I must get 100 emails every single day because I've contributed to something, from around the country, contribute to senatorial positions, congressional positions around the country. And so, whew, they just come at you, next thing you know, you push a button and you just gave them $25 on ActBlue. I would take a look at that, talk to somebody who knows how to set that up, set up your little operation, and have those emails going out in the right locations, and all of a sudden, I think that money will come in nationally, and all of a sudden, you would be, I think you'd be absolutely shocked at how much money might come in.
Okay. Well, we'll take a look at that.
And I don't know how to set that up, but I could show you an example of 150 emails from congressional and
I can
Yeah.
show you all 151.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
All I gotta do is find lists that, for people who have contributed once, and all of a sudden, you got it all down.
Okay, let's move on.
Yep.
I wanted to play off of what you said and something you said where
Okay.
this divide that you talk about, could be, I think, bridged by something you said earlier, which is, if I were your freshman, congressman, why not write op-eds for all of these little publications all over the district? I mean, somebody in Caldwell's newspaper would hear about you, somebody in Newport, I mean, and the spokesman review would be a good source too, but your words written by you in all of these op-eds and all of these publications gets your name not only out there, but it talks about how maybe you would bridge this divide with your issue-based campaign. That you're not interested in Republican versus Democrat. But I would just think, you know, if you have a staff and people could start locating all of these editorial boards or newspapers.
We know where all the newspapers are.
Have you tapped into that?
Yeah.
We have, to some degree, you know, when we went to Pullman and Colfax a few weeks ago, we had press releases going out there, and the press releases were targeting issues that we know are big real issues for them. And it worked, they showed up, but that was press releases, so, but yeah, I'm not sure, Betty, maybe you know how papers feel about candidates writing op-eds for themselves.
They will, from a candidate, to write it is very difficult to get into the paper for an op-ed. Letters to the editor from supporters, press releases for the activities, those are all available. We did press releases for your town hall. He expected 60 people, he got 184, and that's not counting staff or the people at the location. They're coming out, people are showing up. We're just hitting Spokane now, but we've got a strategic plan that will optimize his, getting him in front of people.
And we are gonna, the town hall was so successful there, and we know it's my home turf, but we thought that, you know, we're gonna be doing those in other towns, especially these small towns where nobody ever visits. We're gonna hold the town halls there, so, and, yeah, it was over, and we live streamed it, you can watch the recording on
the YouTube channel.
How many was it that live streamed? It was well over 100 that live streamed it.
Live stream was 141 from across the district, because we sent those, press releases out.
And that doesn't get to the thousands that we're talking about, but
But they
how
talk
we're
about
getting
it.
the ball rolling.
So I wanna add to that. I mean, how many of you are all on Facebook and have a Facebook page with your family or whatever? Does anybody?
Yeah.
Because that's your sphere of influence, and it only takes one person. Your sphere of influence is all of that. I took his Walla Walla thing and I put it on my Facebook. And I made sure that people could see it. I didn't tell them what to do, I just said something to watch a candidate that wants to run for county commissioner. So please pass it on. I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, I remember, and I know all of you have, when I was campaigning, door knocking. So I talked to Vicki Dalton, our county auditor, and I said, Vicki, how would we get a hold of, the biggest thing is voters. We wanna make sure everybody's registered, if they change their address, whatever. What do we need to tell people? Cause that's the way to get in the door. Have those forms with you. Here's all the voter registration. You're not pushing anything particular. You're just saying, register to vote. Your voice is important to be heard. Have you changed your address? Have you changed anything? Let's do something, you know? And that's something you should have at every meeting, or if you have a little town hall, or you ask people together, get that together. Or go door knock on your neighbor's door and say, are you registered to vote? You feel pretty strong about voting this year. Get people out there.
Yes.
You know?
So that, and since she brought up the Facebook, we're all over Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky and the cesspool formerly known as Twitter. But we, please feel free, if you're on there, to follow our social media, and if you hit like and share, that drives the algorithm so more people see it. So if you like what you're hearing today, please do that. So it's been pretty amazing how some of the videos are. And if you compare Facebooks across the campaign, you will see that everybody else is ecstatic, and I'm talking to people just like I'm doing here and talking about what I'm listening. I think it's grabbing us a little bit more attention and recognition.
I just went to Facebook and looked up David Womack. There's another David Womack running for Congress too, somewhere.
There's this.
His first name, his name is Steve.
There's a Steve Womack, and if you click on him, you'll be looking at Northwest Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
Sure, I'm sure he's.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought I did.
But yeah, that's why everything I have says David Womack. Not
Yes.
Womack for Congress.
Okay.
Because
I have-
he uses just straight Womack for Congress. He's been in Congress 10 years or so already.
Just for the social media, after his first visit to Spokane last weekend, he put a post up and there's been 20,000 views from across
That's
the
good.
district.
Good.
20,000, and the subsequent views, they went back and there's been a 25% increase on people looking at his former posts.
That's good.
So, yeah.
So I neglected to introduce Betty.
Hi,
Betty Capalla, she's working with me on the campaign. She's actually the campaign manager, so she's helping me out a lot with this process. And she's based here in Spokane, so that's.
His campaign office is the first floor of my house.
Oh.
Seriously, I have a 3-story Victorian. The whole first floor is campaign office. We have a real grassroots kitchen cabinet operation going.
And that's how we're getting around some of the money thing too.
Yes.
You know, the money in politics kind of drives me nuts, you know, so we're doing this just as efficiently as we can and making the most of every donor dollar.
And how do you feel about Citizens United?
I'm sorry?
How do you feel about Citizens United?
It needs to be overturned.
That
What
brings
a,
up-
what a travesty.
I didn't
Corp-
Citizens United.
She asked about Citizens United. Yeah, what a travesty. Corporations are people and money speaks. Well, yeah, it does, but it's not speech. It's not free speech. You know, and the whole thing of dark money, you know, I don't know if you know, but there's a limit to the contributions you as an individual can give to any campaign, to any candidate during a cycle, right? And you have to give your name, your address, you know, your employer, and your occupation as well. And I have to keep track of all that and enter it. But if you give money to a super PAC, I mean, it's just dark money. You can give as much as you want. Don't know who it comes from. That's just wrong. They have more rights than you do. What's wrong with that picture? So, anyway.
David?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a series of questions that we kind of already have, so that as we compare the candidates side by side,
Yeah.
you know, when they're on the YouTube, as I told you, we'll be able to kind of compare. So think of this as a lightning round.
So yeah, compare and contrast was always one of my favorite essay questions.
Okay. So, on
The teacher.
board with this, how much is this race gonna cost?
It depends on how much you raise and spend, I suppose. You know, I mean, Michael Baumgartner has over $1 million.
Well, yeah, and he's got 8 donors in California, right? Okay?
Okay,
Gave him $850,000 to start last time,
yeah.
and now the same.
So he's got that. Carmela Conroy's getting close to about 200,000 now. I don't have anywhere near that. I'm getting closer to 50,000 at this point. But how much is it gonna cost? We're looking to do this for maybe 300,000. And we think as long as we can do this with a lot of volunteers, a lot of help from all of you, you know, I think we can do this without raising that ton of money You know, and I'm not gonna take any money from any of those.
Bernie Sanders did a great
politics.
job raising a lot of money without having any of that.
Yep.
Right. Okay, next question is, do you support expanding the Supreme Court? Kind of a yes or no?
Yes.
Good.
You wanna hear my plan, or we're just doing the lightning round?
We just
Okay.
really don't have time,
Yes.
because I wanna, if there's any questions that don't get addressed here.
Yes, and term limits. for the
Good,
Supreme Court.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, and, do you support the attacks on small Venezuelan boats? They're still going on.
It's all Venezuelan boats.
Are they?
Yes.
I've
yes.
not seen it in the news.
3 days ago.
Mhm.
Days ago. Took out
All
three
this
people
other
yesterday.
stuff and then
Just
kill them.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
No, it's murder.
Thank you,
Right.
good, okay. Are we
And
ready?
it's against the law of armed conflict. It's
That's-
against US law, it's against international law. Pete Hegseth should be impeached,
And in
put
prison.
on trial for war
Yeah.
crimes.
Yes, I can't wait to see him in The Hague. Are we right to support the Ukrainians?
Yes.
Yeah. Should we go to war with Venezuela? Regime change for oil, how is that different from Iran?
You remember this phrase from the military? I think that was an OBE. Overcome by events, that question.
Well, yeah, but.
But
we're
the
still
answer,
taking their
is
oath.
no. I mean, we should have never done that. We invaded a sovereign country, and yeah, he wasn't a nice guy, but you know, a lot of nice guys that we don't take out. And would we
Go to China.
well, never mind. I started to ask, would we stand for that for somebody coming in and taking out our president? You're like, "Oh, we would." I'm so glad you folks can laugh.
Yeah,
We
we
need that, don't we?
Yes. Should we have a supreme unitary presidency?
A supreme what?
Unitary presidency.
I'm not even sure what that means.
That means the be all and end all is the president. That's what
Oh,
they're
should we have a king?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's what they
No,
call
we
it.
fought that one 250 years ago. Let's move on.
Exactly. So, don't laugh. What are the 3 branches of government? Some people couldn't answer.
Really? So it's the legislative branch, the judiciary, and the executive branch.
Thank you.
It's
Are they equal?
No, not in practice. In theory, they're supposed to balance one another.
Constitution says so.
Yeah, but even in the Constitution, you know, there's a reason that the legislature is Article 1. The executive branch is Article 2. And the judiciary is Article 3. Because that's the way the framers thought they were in importance. They were all supposed to balance each other, but that's what they thought. Boy, we got that one mucked up.
Yeah. Okay, and, let's see, should military be in our cities?
Well, you know, I think the airmen from Fairchild should be able to come in and have a meal. But I know what they're talking about. You're talking about should, military be deployed into our cities, and no, there's actually, it's against the law, except under rare circumstances.
Thank you. Okay, and, should we build more robust guardrails to protect our people from actors like Trump?
Of course. And that's, you know, that's gonna be a real challenge, because
Yeah.
some of it's gonna be constitutional. But there's things that can be done legislatively too. Yeah.
Okay, and, what should we do to fix the economy for everyday people?
Well, we can start by, raising the federal minimum wage, which hasn't been raised since the late 2000s, the late aughts. And we should not do that overnight to where it needs to be. It needs to be a ramp up so businesses can adjust. And it needs to be indexed to inflation at some point, so we're not waiting for years to redo it. And it should probably even be regionally adjusted, because it costs more to live on the West Coast than it does in West Virginia, for instance. So, yeah, that's a good start. And then we can do a lot of things with economic development. The federal government can put together packages that encourage different local entities to work together. In some places, the county and the city don't even really work together to improve their local economies. And I've seen a terrific model that when I was in Bakersfield, California, in addition to working for Kaiser, I worked with, I was the chairman of a not-for-profit called the Kern Economic Development Corporation. Kern was the name of the county. And that was a public-private partnership. And we had every municipality in the county sitting around the table, along with a lot of business people and business interests. And it was people who, they benefited from growth. They benefited from economic development. And we went after new businesses to bring into the community. We did that by assessing what our strengths were and what our weaknesses were, and plugging those things. We did it by streamlining the permitting process. Businesses, when they try to come into a new area, one of the biggest things we're looking for is speed. Can they get through the permitting process? And we ended up with a process where a business could sit down at a computer on a website, and in less than an hour, they could fill out an application for a permit, and we would turn it over, the municipality involved in the county would turn it around in less than a week for a conditional approval, which didn't actually mean a whole lot, because they still had to go through some permitting process, which we tried to speed as much. But having a conditional approval, they went, oh man, they are on the ball, and we brought in so much new business into that community just by doing that, and then putting an actual salesperson on the road to go talk to businesses about the advantages of coming to Bakersfield and Kern County. The last year I was chairman, we brought 4,000 new jobs in the county. It was remarkable. And that was the power of working together. And if the federal government can put together packages there to incentivize that at the local level, I think that would go a long way. I know in Walla Walla, it's a struggle for the port in the county and the city to get on the same page sometimes.
What kind of healthcare revisions would you make?
Talked a little bit about it already, Medicare for all who want it, and I'm happy to talk more about that, but I know I just talked a lot, and this is supposed to be a lightning round, so.
Thank you. Okay, have you ever been arrested?
No, the pause was like, well, what does a traffic ticket count? No, I don't guess so, and that was, my last traffic ticket, I was 18, so, just so
That's too bad.
I'm a speed limit guy.
I'm
the guy that everybody gets behind, and tries to pass.
You have some future opportunities.
Arrests are not necessarily bad if you're being arrested for doing something.
Well, that's true. Thank you, that's a very good point.
Okay, what are your feelings about being able to do something about this anti-science sentiment? What is it? Obviously, what they say.
Well, I think it's a lot of misinformation that's out there, and that's a tough thing to combat these days. But I tell you, with the things that have happened with RFK, it's made it worse, because now you got a government spewing misinformation. So the best thing we can do is just tell the truth and be honest and stick
Tell
to
the
it.
truth? That's a concept.
So I have to tell you, my mom and I don't necessarily see eye to eye on every political issue. So when I decided to do this, I was a little anxious about calling my mom and telling her. I didn't know what reaction I'd get. And her reaction was, she paused for a moment, and she said, well, good. If you win, at least somebody will tell us the truth. And I thought, oh, Mom.
You can't handle the truth.
Thank you, Jack Nicholson.
Okay, and the last question in this particular speed round is, should we scale back the military? Recycle? Cut the budget, maybe do a
Get rid of
little
ICE.
accounting?
Yeah,
for the
that's,
first time.
yeah.
Get rid of ICE.
And the question about the military, I don't know, it could probably be scaled back some, you know, especially if we looked at, if we really did look just at defense and not offense. At the same time, I really do support a robust military, cause this world is dangerous.
Yeah.
It's just dangerous. And, you know, really, when you look at the things that America has done, really, both good and bad, you know, we've gotten away with a lot of it because we're strong. And so I think it's really important that we use it only for good. And sometimes there's a difference opinion of what that is, but, you know, I've always believed that anytime you're in charge, or in this case, you have the strongest military, that you should hold yourself to a higher standard than everybody else. You know, it's kind of back to whom much is given, much is expected. And we've created this really strong military, so we should set the standard for how we use our military for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Until the Iraq War, Afghan and Iraq War, we used to be able to carry a big stick and not have to use it.
Yeah.
But now everybody saw, oh, that stick isn't so big. We can
Yeah.
take it out with IEDs.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We've lost a lot in
I remember.
national power.
I was at headquarters Air Mobility Command when we went into Iraq, and I remember kind of being in the hall one day, and I kept seeing these people come in and out from CENTCOM, from Central Command.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, oh God, something's up, you know. And then I saw somebody I knew. There was another medic who came in from, and I knew he was in CENTCOM. Yeah, he was the CENTCOM Surgeon General back then. I pulled my aside and said, Randy, what's going on? What's going on? Kind of looked over his shoulder and he said, we're getting ready to go into Iraq. And the chills just went down my spine. It's just like, oh my God, this is wrong. This is such a huge mistake. And it was. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, the Democrats, how should I say, they were missing in action in the opposition on that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was just a couple of votes against that, but it was by and large everybody was lining up and
Fair and fast.
at the time, you know, there was a lot of movement to do it, and it, you know, and you know, I'm not sure I could articulate at the time exactly why I felt the way I did, but I just knew it at the moment. It was like, oh, what a mistake.
Well, I think that goes right back to what you were just talking about telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because Iraq was all lies,
Yep.
hidden in there.
Well, that happened a long time before Iraq too, the Vietnam War,
That's
the
true.
conflict. Involvement our militaries had in South America and.
Well, and one of the current big boogaboos out there too is Iran. You know, we have a long history of messing in their business. Years and years, decades and decades.
You know, I would like to see that you do stay away from labels, because the one thing, I'm an independent. I'm not Democrat or Republican, I have campaigned for our county commissioner years ago that was a Republican. I've been from Missouri, Shawnee State, lots of Republicans there. And that's the thing you grow up with. And the one thing I hate to hear more than anything else, and I think this is where the young people are, is all the rhetoric. Whenever you say something, you bring up the Democrats or you bring up the Republicans. And I think they get tired of hearing that because they feel, why are we continuing with the labels? So if you can stay away from the labels, stay away from all of that, saying anything about so-and-so being a Republican or Democrat, I think you're better off.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that. I like to think that way.
Yeah,
And
it's easy to follow.
maybe our response in the future was, yeah, it wasn't just the Democrats, it was everybody
Right.
who was wrong. Yeah, there's one of yours.
Dave, I just wanted to say that I think Spokane is pretty hungry for a candidate who can outgun. But just as an example, John Bingle, one of the city councilmen who was a Republican, I was so surprised to see it happen, but he was voted out from a district that was strongly Republican and conservative. It was kind of a surprise, but Spokane is, because of our population concentration, I think we're hungry to hear from a candidate like you. And,
So.
yes, that's where the votes are.
You mean Spokane well enough.
Yeah. And I'm gonna pay attention to this.
Absolutely.
And that's, there's never, the last time there's only been two representatives from the 5th district ever who were not from Spokane. And those towns are no longer in the district. The redistricting in late 70s, early 80s, whenever the last time the major redistricting was done, they were pushed out. So yeah, that's another little uphill battle.
Well, and since Baumgartner will not do town halls here, I think town halls here.
Town hall here would be very well accepted. Very well.
Alrighty, yep, Dave's making a note.
Yeah, we already are booking venues for that. We're already booking venues for that.
Yeah.
One more question, I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
I think we,
I'm
yeah.
just curious with being against labels and trying to figure out, have you contacted the other people running for the office that you're running for to try to get together with a combined message or even maybe planning a series of town halls with all of them so we can speak to the folks all together and see differences and contrasts and.
Well, I've talked to 4. I've talked to 4 that are running, so, yeah. But we've not talked about combining messages.
Maybe combine town halls so that people can see.
So, if somebody wants to put one of those together, we'll be there. We'll be there, and I know there is talk of that in Walla Walla. Once we held our town hall there, then a couple of the other candidates called up and wanted to hold the town hall as well. And so the local Democratic Party is putting that.
Okay, I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to cut this.
Thank you.
Because we
Thank
have-
you all very much.
Thank you.